See you down there. Yeah, my brother.
Have fun. See you in a few.
One fucking get it. All right, 3, 2, 1. See ya.
You are listening to Exit Point, a podcast about the advancement of base jumping and the exploration of its culture. Join us as we discover striking insights and hear gripping stories from the world's most extreme adventure athletes and community members. And now, one of our hosts will try to set the record straight as they dive into the deep end with another exciting guest.
Oh my God, that's the sickest thing I ever did in my life! Woo!
Hello, and welcome back to the Exit Point podcast. Thank you to all the people that continue to support this show by listening and sharing it, and to all our guests who continue to accept the risks of putting their voice on the record. On to this episode featuring Jimmy Peterson, which has sat on the shelf for over a year because it was deemed to be too controversial and borderline unethical to air. Because of its potential to frustrate anyone listening, I'm compelled to begin by saying I didn't set out in this interview for it to be comfortable to listen to, or to right any particular wrong. I simply wanted to find out the truth about what Jimmy was thinking when he started offering tandem base jumping to children. I understand that a lot of people may be disappointed that I didn't cross-examine him more harshly or inject my own opinion in an attempt to balance his statements. But I hope that everyone can see how seriously I took this subject matter by the amount of research and expert opinions I brought to the table. Truth be told, I absolutely hated some of his answers, and I imagine a great number of you will too. But I did respect Jimmy's forthright honesty. Ultimately, my intention was simply to examine where we draw the line for sharing this life and death activity with others. At the end of the day, if we are hell-bent on judging Jimmy for guiding uninformed and immature participants into a potentially fatal environment, we should also weigh what he's doing against a larger community that facilitates crash courses of unprepared adults, sells equipment to unhealthy and suicidal folks without vetting them, and generally pushes base on the uninformed when we know the lifestyle is likely to claim their lives. If I can say one thing in Jimmy's defense, at least he's putting himself at risk with his participants. That being said, I hope you enjoy this episode, but if you get to the end and need something to express your outrage, we've made special stickers that we'd be happy to send to anyone who wants one. Now, without further ado, let's get Jimmy on the track. Jimmy Peterson, thanks for joining me.
Yeah, absolutely. It's good to be here.
Nice. Well, I brought you on because, man, there's been some controversy swirling around some of the stuff that you've done recently, and we'll get to that. But the main purpose of this episode is to explore the concept of where is the line.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe we can start by just exploring some of your personal stuff that you've done in base jumping and understand where the line is personally for you. You've done a lot of really dangerous, really technical, really precise jumping. Can you fill us in on some of that stuff and maybe get to a conclusion about where you draw the line personally?
Yeah. Well, I've been jumping in Moab for 13 years on the 27th of this month, actually. Kind of started off in a interesting way. My first base jump ever was handheld off Tombstone.
Who took you on that?
Ryan Sorg and Jill, actually. I watched Jill huck a double backflip and then went handheld. So I remember Rich Webb gave me so much shit and was so mad at me for it. But yeah, so I did 2 handheld jumps here, 2 at the bridge, and then Kevin Chirico and Adam Crum kind of just picked me up and kept teaching me along the way over the years. I went back to the bridge finally with like 60 base jumps to learn how to go stowed because I didn't want to do that here. So it's been an interesting progression. So far, totally safe. As you mentioned earlier, Andy and I have done a lot of the slot canyon jumps, running static lines. I don't think those were really a thing before we started exploring that.
I certainly haven't seen anybody else doing that, or at least I didn't know of anyone doing it before you guys did.
Yeah, so we've kind of figured that out. I think the lowest static line I've done was sub 80 feet. Had to pick up my legs for that one, but where I draw the line is grossly underhanging jumps. We did one down King Creek and called it Bloodlust. I will never go back to that. Obviously, longevity and survivability is huge. I don't want to end up like so many of our friends. In a lot of ways, I've had a lot of friends die slider down, and, you know, obviously slider up is much more prevalent. But for me, it's just about having fun, exploring new jumps, getting to new areas. There's not much of Moab I haven't explored at this point, whether it's from the air or hiking around, lots of climbing. So at this point, yeah, it's kind of just sustainability and staying safe.
What probability of failure are you willing to accept for a jump that you really want to do?
Well, the way I see it is, like this year, we've opened quite a few like lower jumps. Lorenzo made the joke one day that we wouldn't die if we fell off the cliff because it was so low. I think that if you're packing good and, you know, you're current, feeling it, then kind of, I don't want to say the sky's the limit, but you can kind of get away with a lot more. Like, obviously, there's jumps I've done where I'm like, I'm not doing that again. But there's a lot of jumps where like I'm like, yeah, I could repeat that over and over and over. So it's kind of a gray area there, you know?
Well, there, you actually kind of answered the question. If you were to take one of those jumps and give that as an example, you know, what was the probability of failure there?
Well, I named it DNR. It's in Hell Roaring Canyon, which is now closed.
Wow.
So that was do not repeat or do not resuscitate. But I always carry paracord and brake cord with me in case I'm in a situation where I need to like static line. But I was doing rock tosses, and a shallow rock toss was like 3.7 seconds. A bigger one, which I know I can jump out far, was like 4.2 seconds. So in my mind, I was like, this is like 200 feet, free fell it, opened up at like 10 or 15 feet above the ground. And then wasn't making it to my good landing area, so landed in the wash in a boulder field and was like, man, I almost just killed myself. So that's why I named it Do Not Repeat. So that's an example.
Okay. That's for your personal safety, if we can use that word. Let's get into tandem jumping. And maybe we can start with what got you into tandem jumping in the sky and what made you progress into tandem jumping in base.
Skydiving, I started out packing tandem parachutes and thought it was like, man, that's the coolest job in the world. You get to jump with people that are stoked, show them their first skydive. So basically the first 3 years of skydiving for me was like packing parachutes and jumping when I could to get enough jumps to be a TI. Once I finally did that, got my tandem rating. My first actual tandem was my mom. And so that was pretty cool. I did 5 for the rating and then took my mom, and then my old boss put a hand cam on my hand and we were ready to go.
Off you went.
Yeah. So, done over 9,000 tandem skydives. And back when I first started, Mario was here doing tandem base. So he would come to the drop zone to practice wingsuiting with Steph. And I would always talk to him about it. And I thought it was like, man, that's the coolest shit. Like, I was barely base jumping at this point, and Mario was just ripping tandem base. Obviously it wasn't as public, or there wasn't as much video. You know, you'd see like photos that Chris Hunter had taken or something like that. It's not like today where everything's on social media. In fact, we still use CX100s. I don't think GoPro was quite doing its thing yet, or just barely. So yeah, over the years, obviously Mario died, and so it kind of stopped in Moab, and Sean Chuma was the only one doing it. And me and Andy started talking about how cool it would be to be able to do tandem base. And at the time, everyone told us we weren't going to do it. They were like, no, you guys will never do that. And I had the tandem skydives, but not the base jumps for it. So at the time I was an SNTA, and I was like, Andy, what you need to do is get a D license. And so of course I was like, here you go, here's your D license. And he went and got his tandem rating with JVH. And that was a whole fiasco because he got his tandem rating. Sadly, JVH died.
Yeah.
And Andy showed up here trying to get a job. So there was no proof or record of Andy doing his tandem rating other than my old boss, Paul, calling over to, I think, Mile High. And he was like, was this guy doing tandems? And there was a couple people that were like, yeah, he was. So that's how Andy started doing tandems. And we got him going as good as we could. And eventually, yeah, we both had enough jumps for a tear to be like, okay, we'll sell you guys a canopy. And yeah, it's kind of just gone from there.
So even then, there was like a controversy over you doing tandem base in Moab.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. And largely that controversy has somewhat subsided over the years as you guys have continued to do it.
I would like to think so, yeah. I know that I have less base jumps than Andy, but more tandem skydives. So I don't want to say that people accept me or him doing them more than the other one, but yeah, you know, people definitely have opinions on it and love to voice those opinions.
Right. I mean, yeah,
Yeah.
no doubt. No doubt. Though there are now like several operators that are doing tandem base in Moab. And so it seems like that argument has somewhat at least cooled off.
No, it's definitely become more accepted. Definitely the first couple were highly scrutinized.
Highly.
Yeah. I took my ex-girlfriend Mac off Sweet Spot for my first one. And then I took her off the Space Net for the next one, I believe. And yeah, you know, at first everyone was like, oh, you shouldn't be doing Space Net tandems, even though theoretically it was like the safest tandem we could do here. You're out over the middle of a canyon and the net moves a bit, but it's safe-ish, I guess. You know, like I think Andy's coming up on 1,000 tandems that he's done. Totally safe. I'm in the 140s, totally safe. So,
And by safe, you mean no incidents, right?
no incidents. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Maybe we can move on then to the current controversy and bring up all of the things that were used to be said about tandem, but in the, a fresher context. There's been a lot of talk about taking kids for tandems.
Yeah. So the most recent uproar is I took a 5-year-old, and certain people are pretty pissed. But this actually kind of goes back further to last year and the year before. I had met some families flying them on the hot air balloon, and they were like, how cool would it be to take the kids base jumping? And I was like, well, we can do that. And so this all kind of stems back from then. And it wasn't a 5-year-old, but it was like, a 13-year-old, I think was the first one I took. Her name was Bailey. And certain people were like, oh, I don't know how I feel about this. And then the next time I posted about jumping a kid, there was even more uproar. And so it's kind of become this, I don't want to say funny thing to throw out there, but it almost kind of is, because then people run around with their hair on fire and they're like, you can't be doing that.
I've got to ask, why post about any of this?
Personally, I just think it's awesome. It goes back to when I was a little kid. If I could have been in these guys' shoes jumping off a cliff or even out of an airplane, I would have loved it. So for me, I just think it's cool that these kids have the opportunity to do this. I'm not doing it for my own personal gratification. In fact, if anything, it's gotten more of a negative response for me.
Yeah,
So,
were you expecting that? Because holy crap, man, there was a huge backlash.
no, not to that extent, no. I mean, I've had multiple memes, base memes, people hating on me personally, through private messages, all sorts of stuff. But I've also got a lot of support for it, to where I had one parent reach out asking me to take her 4 and 6-year-old on tandems. So it's kind of all across the board. Thankfully I've got thick skin and no one's really gotten under my skin yet. And sometimes it's fun to just, go back and forth with people and kind of troll them back, because, yeah.
Yeah, and I will say that there are a fair few people who have said that it skews the motivation for them to see you posting about it. Was there any motivation to troll people with what you were doing, or was that completely a symptom of this?
I mean, in one aspect, if it was never recorded, then there would be nothing to post. But regardless of people trolling me or not, I would still post it. Even if no one watched it or liked it, which, the second video I posted of the 5-year-old sister jumping, I was kind of like, I've taken this into consideration and this is me considering it. And then I posted it and it got thousands and thousands of views, but no one liked it because it was obvious that I was trolling everyone, being like, okay, what do you think about this?
Right. And I mean, it has a slight air of that based on some of the very famous people who have trolled people intentionally. Remember Eric Roner?
Mm-hmm.
Roner used to make these videos of him and his kid doing extreme stuff. He would start out with his kid skiing down this slope and just replace his kid with this very realistic looking dummy,
Mm-hmm.
and then shoot it with professionals such that it looked like his kid was dropping a 30-foot cliff or base jumping off of some huge tower.
Yeah. In a certain sense, did I ever have to post this for anyone to know? No. But do I think it's cool enough to throw it out there for the world to see and kind of comment on it? I've valued everyone's opinion. on the subject. And even if it doesn't seem like I'm taking it seriously, I am. Like, I've read and responded to almost every comment that someone's left.
Yeah, I've seen that. So this is more of a personal pride thing than it is to rile people.
Yeah, I'm not trying to rile anyone. If I wanted to just go under the radar with this, I would never post anything about it again. But I've publicly said that I will continue to do this. And yeah, I'm open for people's feedback, opinion, whatever you want to call it. But
yes, and that's really what I want to talk about. You know, there are some hair on fire on both sides of the line here. You posted that picture of that 5-year-old. All of a sudden, there were a bunch of people spewing venom. But at the center of this thing, there seems like a very real and very important topic to dive into, which again is, where's the line? And as we dive into this, I'm going to try my best to not take an opinion on one side or another. I've done a fair amount of research about this topic. I've talked to a lot of professionals in psychology and neurology and sports psychology and sports in general. And so we'll hear some of those opinions and kind of start diving at the real issue.
yeah, for sure.
Okay, so let's start with legality, which has been brought up a bunch. Is it illegal?
It is not, actually. It's not even illegal to take kids on tandem skydives. That's a rule through the USPA. When I was living and working in New Zealand, that's where I kind of first was introduced to jumping with younger kids. I'm not going to name drop zones, but I've worked at drop zones in the States that were having me take younger than 18 people.
I mean, there's a drop zone in the United States that advertises it right now.
Yeah.
Ben Lowe's operation in Colorado has said to have done between 900 and 1,000 tandems for adolescents.
Yeah, I fully support it.
And then we also can talk about internationally, there are a lot of rules that allow for kids. For instance, as far as I'm aware, Switzerland will allow anyone that fits the harness to do a tandem. I think Brazil, Mexico, some of the other South American countries, and Russia also allow for children to do, or at least people below 18 to do tandems.
Mm-hmm. In New Zealand, they have smaller harnesses for the kids.
There we go. Yeah. New Zealand as well.
Yeah.
Okay. So as far as the legality issue goes, at least it's not illegal.
Right.
I guess it's also worth mentioning that base jumping is completely unregulated and non-standardized, so there really can't be any legislation surrounding it specifically.
Exactly. Yep.
Right. And you're right, the FAA does not regulate the age of a skydiver. They lean on the USPA, which is a non-regulatory agency. And so the worst that can happen to somebody violating the USPA rules is that they lose their USPA license, which has very, very little effect overall.
Yeah, because you're still certified through a manufacturer and
Right.
so.
Okay, so moving on. There are a lot of people saying that this is a safety issue. What's your response to that?
I mean, I don't look at taking a kid on a tandem base jump any different than an adult. From a safety standpoint, in my opinion, it's safer.
Okay, explain that. Yeah, how is it safer?
They're much smaller. I can, like the 5-year-old, for instance, I picked him up and his feet weren't touching the ground. So, it's like jumping with, if you were to put ropes in a stash bag and jump off a cliff with it on the front of you, they're not there to do anything. Like, they can't mess you up. Whereas when you're jumping with someone that's equally your height, they have to jump with you. If they don't jump at the same time, it can get like a little wonky. Still, I wouldn't say it's 100% safe. Nothing is. Like,
right.
Driving your car is by far the most dangerous thing we do on average. But safety-wise, like being able to jump myself, or really any smaller passenger, it could be an adult that's really short and doesn't weigh a lot, where it starts to get more, I don't want to say dangerous, but more interesting is like when you have someone that's slightly taller than you or heavier, their input really does factor in like how you jump off. If they jump off weird, it's kind of like riding a bull. Like you're just riding them off the cliff, and there's no wind resistance like tandems where you can move your body. You guys,
right.
Yeah, you're in it. So
at this point, we're kind of defining safety as the objective dangers of the situation. Like how many things could potentially go wrong during the operation. And if we're talking about an adult, they have the agency and authority to completely change your body position, to trip on exit, to put their arms and legs in a position that is detrimental to both of your health and safety.
Yeah.
Whereas a child has much less agency and authority to do that. And so we're saying that because you have more control over the entire situation, it is on the whole safer. Is that fair?
Mm-hmm. Well, and I also think that, we could get into like conditions and stuff like that. Like, at least for me, I've drawn a little bit wider of a line of like, I'll jump in a little bit of wind, but with tandems, like you're obviously jumping in the best conditions. You're jumping overhung objects. I think as this progresses, because it's going to, there'll be more and more people that do it. I think you'll see most of the injuries on landing, just like you do tandem skydiving.
Yeah.
I know that there was one guy that had back-to-back 180s with tandems. Still haven't seen videos or anything like that, but it's the likelihood of a 180 on a static line is pretty low, I think. I don't personally know. Well, maybe I know one person that had one. Personally know them.
Yeah.
But it's a pretty rare thing.
Okay. So beyond safety, I think that risk, on the other hand, is very much relevant to what we're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And you just talked about probabilities. And I think the difference between safety and risk is that risk is kind of a multi-layered calculation. It is the probability of failure multiplied by the impact of that failure. That is the overall risk.
Mm-hmm.
If you were to have to quantify what the probability of failure is of a tandem base jump, would you say that it's a whole number percentage, a fraction of a percent, or is it approaching zero?
If we're talking in fatality, I would say 0.0001. I have had my static line prematurely break twice, and Andy and I took a 10-pound weight and actually did drop tests with a dynamometer and all that to see what the brake cord was breaking at, and we got staggering results. Like out of the hundreds of times we threw it, brake cord was snapping at 10 pounds, 30 pounds, 40 pounds, all over the board, and we actually discovered that surgeon knots, if you don't continue to tie overhand knots on it, will actually untie occasionally.
Yeah, actually, I've been trying to adjust people's thinking on that as well. Like the surgeon's knot is a reefing knot. And so it's not designed to be a bend, which is, I'm doing that in air quotes. A bend knot is designed to tie two lines or two ropes together. So like an overhand bend is a much better knot to be using in any context in which you are trying to tie two ends together, versus a surgeon's knot, which is designed to tie shoes together or tie pieces of skin together or whatever else.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. So we actually, through a lot of testing, we now double wrap our brake cord. So instead of just wrapping it through once and tying the knot, we'll do 2 wraps on it. And that it's the weight of the canopy that is causing the brake cord to break prematurely.
I've also heard that there have been some pilot chute and bridles that have gotten ripped off during tandems because the system or something in the system was overloaded. Is that?
Yeah, that also happened to me once.
Okay.
So, and that day, to give some ideas on how that happened, I think I just tied the brake cord too tight, and for whatever reason, it shock loaded it, because I landed and was kind of looking around when I was picking up the parachute and discovered that the bridle was, snapped and the pilot chute was still on the cliff. And
how did the parachute open?
Great.
Yeah.
It slapped, like the chest strap slapped me in the chest hard.
Yeah.
But on heading, yeah.
Okay, so back to the question at hand. With still a lot of things untested, and still some failures occurring, where do you put the probability of, injury during a tandem base jump?
Injury, I think really it depends on a factor of the tandem pilot, instructor, whatever you want to call us, and their experience with landing different wing loadings, tandems. Like for me, having over 9,000 tandem skydives, I feel like gives me a huge advantage. Because once again, unless you 180, which would be like worst case scenario, it's going to be landing where you experience most problems. As far as like catastrophic failures, even when, like if your bridle snaps, it doesn't do that until you're at line stretch.
Right. So the canopy's out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And when the brake cord's broke, it's not a long free fall. Like most of it's out already, but you have a pilot chute. It's mostly out all the way. So it's injury wise, I think, yeah, if you put someone in a tree or something like that.
So it's non-zero.
Non-zero. Well, I would not say it's zero.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there's a non-zero percentage, and right now we don't quite know where to place it between like fraction of a percent and percent.
Yeah.
Okay. So that leads us kind of into probabilities and statistics. Would you say at this point that we have enough tandem jumps for our feeling on the matter to be statistically significant?
I would think so. Between Andy and I, we've done over 1,000. I know Chuma, I don't know his exact number, but he's up around 1,000, I believe. And I don't know how many Matt and Gravy have done or Dave up at the bridge, but and then there's Maurizio in Italy. So there's probably been like 3,000. And I only know of the people getting injured in Spain with the 180s.
Okay.
But from what I understand, they didn't jump a good clip. It was like as soon as they opened, they were on the wall. And then also, I don't know experience of this guy. I don't even know who it was.
Okay. So this kind of gets at the root of this issue, which I think most people are upset about. They view the probability of failure as significant, which I'll say that word is subjective, right? Like what is significant to somebody is insignificant to somebody else, which makes it really hard to dive into the next piece, which is what is the impact of a failure? Well, the impact of a failure on any base jump is up to and including death, right? It's not, it's not snow sports.
Exactly, yeah.
Where we're like, on the bunny hill, like this is like some serious stuff. So if the probability is significant and the impact is immense, then most people would say like, okay, that's not worth it for me. But it seems like you're standing on the line of, okay, yes, I understand the value of life here. Like the impact of failure is insurmountable. However, I don't think that's ever going to happen. Right.
Yeah. And I'm not saying that I'll never have a 180, but with reaction times and thousands of base jumps, especially here in Moab, I think a lot of people giving their opinions of it being critical failure are slider up jumpers who are used to being in the wingsuit realm or tracking realm where when shit goes wrong, it's like critically wrong.
Yeah.
Whereas some turkey boogies, it's like the walls are padded. Everyone's cliff striking and like brushing it off and running around the raffle, showing videos being like, dude, look at my cliff strike. As far as that goes, like with my reaction time, I would be on it, or at least I hope, that I'm on it quick enough to not hit the wall. But if we are, then it would be, my legs will be out first, obviously. I'm not just going to use people as an airbag like everyone thinks or says.
Let me ask you this. With a kid going tandem base jumping, can you guarantee success in that you guarantee that they do not get physically harmed?
With my experience, yes.
Okay, talk us through that. Like, how do you guarantee that success?
Let's say we have a 180. The speeds are going to be next to nothing. They're 400 square feet canopies. My reaction time is super quick.
What's super quick?
Less than a half a second.
Okay.
From canopy inflation, like most of the time, I'm clearing toggles before the canopy's all the way inflated. And that's if I go toggles. If I need to hit risers and get the canopy turning, it's going to be even less than that because I'm not clearing toggles and having a surge happen. And let's say worst comes to worst, my legs are going to stick out much further than some little kid's legs where I can like push off the wall if needed. Whereas an adult, especially someone big, yeah, they're for sure going to be right there with me. And they're harder to get around, It's just one of those things. And like, for instance, with the 5-year-old, when I landed, he still didn't touch the ground. So it's like standing him up. I'm landing on my own feet. It's much different than having a larger human on the front of you. And it goes for the same with like tandem skydiving. Landing someone with more weight, no matter what the canopy size, is always trickier.
All right, let's get into a couple of more issues here. So we've dealt with the safety aspect, legality, the risk, the probability, and statistics insofar as we know them. And those are the kind of the things that have been debated hotly online that have turned somewhat venomous. Though I think at the center of the argument, it comes down to informed consent.
Mm-hmm.
An adult has lived enough life that they can kind of conceptualize and understand all of the things that we've just gone over as far as like legality and safety and risk, versus a 5-year-old, I would wager, has not lived the experience relevant to analyzing that. And so just cannot give informed consent for that because they just have no concept of how dangerous it is. How do you crest that?
The way that I look at it is, I kind of learned about this in New Zealand. Are the parents forcing them to do it? I'm definitely not forcing anyone to do any skydive or base jump that I'm taking them on. So like for the 5-year-old, I took his little sister first, or his older sister first. He got to watch it, see it, make sure he wanted to do it. And multiple times throughout the whole process, tying in the brake cord and all that, I asked him multiple times, are you sure you want to do this? Are you sure you want to do this? And, if people want to ask like, well, did I explain to him that we could die? Well, I don't know that he fully understands death.
Right. They don't.
It's like, what am I going to say to that aspect? Like,
well, I that's my point. I don't think you can explain that to a kid. And so the question becomes, if they cannot render informed consent, who is basically certifying that this is okay for that individual?
Mm-hmm. I mean, I don't want to say the parents, but that's kind of what it comes down to. As long as you're not jumping a screaming and kicking kid that's crying off the cliff, then, I think they're having fun. It's not like we're out to terrorize anyone and be like, no, you have to jump because it's cool and you're going to like it. Like the 5-year-old, for instance, wanted to go again right then. He thought it was the coolest thing ever. I've also seen other younger kids be like, no, I don't want to do it after seeing their parents jump or, their sister or brother. So without being all grim, I mean, it's the same. I think even with adults, you can sit here and be like, we could die, we could die, we could die. But for most people, it's not going to change their mind. For the people that it is, they're probably weren't going to base jump in the first place or skydive. It's the same with snowboarding, rock climbing, other sports. Like, it's all dangerous.
It is all dangerous. And I've certainly taught people as young as 3 a lot of the things that we do: wind tunnel flying, snowboarding, rock climbing, absolutely. And in those cases where the kid cannot conceptualize the dangers, we require the parents to provide informed consent. Most of the time, having to also educate them somewhat on the very real dangers of what we're about to put their kids through. How do those discussions go with the parents that are handing over their kids to go do tandem base jumps?
Actually, the last family, the mom looked at me and she was like, if you ever have kids, this is the way to raise them. Don't try and protect them from the world because you can't do that. And that's what she said to me word for word. So I think it goes off like, how would people raise their own kids? Some people are going to want to lock them in a room and hide them from the world. And those kids will grow up to discover that the world can be a shitty place.
Yeah.
Other people like to kind of immerse their kids in whatever they can and let them figure it out. To an extent, obviously.
To an extent. Yeah. And so like, that's back to the question at hand from the beginning, which is, where's the line? And I think I brought this up to you in a previous conversation where you had proposed that. And I go, okay, cool. Like, yeah, there are some wild and radical things that are amazing that kids get to experience because their parents are willing to assume the risk for them, because there's nobody that's going to assume the liability without their consent.
Mm-hmm.
But there are also a lot of terrible things that happen to kids because their parents are allowed to consent for them.
Right.
So like, it seems like it's a double-edged sword there. And there are some laws governing some things that parents can just not consent to. But where do we draw the line with a parent's ability to consent for a child?
I mean, that kind of gets into the, freak accident factor happening. Like, I think with a lot of extreme sports where kids are involved, there's freak accidents and everything, right?
Right.
So did the parents have any, ill will for their child? I would say probably not. I mean, some parents do. They're not good people. But for the most part, I think parents are wanting their kids to experience things, live life, understand what it's about. But yeah, obviously, if a freak accident happens and the kid's maimed for life or something like that, then yeah, it's unfair to them. Absolutely.
Right. So like, I guess what I'm asking you, like kind of point blank, is how far should a parent be able to just allow their kid to do whatever they want?
That's an excellent question. I would think that, at least in my experience, there's certain people in tandem base that I would say absolutely not. You shouldn't jump anyone. But then I shouldn't like put myself on a pedestal here and be like, well, it's okay if you jump with me. But it really comes down to like experience of the person you're going with. It's not like let's say you have to go to the doctor to get a surgery done. You don't want someone that doesn't have a doctorate degree, has no idea how to do surgery operating on you. You're going to go to someone that went through school, did all the training, has years of experience, and then you're like, okay, this is more feasible, because kids break their arms all the time.
They do. And parents consent to it. Let me bring up a couple of examples that might like fuel the discussion of things that parents can consent to legally in this country. Right now, legally, you can consent to elective surgery. You can consent to your child doing drugs, like psychedelics and other types. You can consent to your child having underage sex and getting married. In certain states, you can consent to your child getting married at 14 and having a child.
And see, I know this is a very hot topic right now.
Yeah.
Because it is 2024. So I'm going to tread lightly on this one. But
okay.
I think that some of those, without being too specific, could be highly damaging. Mentally, emotionally, physically. Elective surgeries are irreversible in some aspects.
Yeah. And I'll caveat that list by saying that some of those are accompanied by professionals who like are, operators in those fields, right? Like you don't just go consent to anyone giving your kid elective surgery.
Right.
Right. But the lines are all over the map as to what is required of that parent and what's required of that kid to prove to whoever is operating that like the boxes have been checked. What do you think about serving drugs to kids?
I would disagree with it.
Okay. Across the board?
Yes. I mean, look at, what was supposed to help a lot of people got abused, like Adderall.
Yep.
Xanax, painkillers. That's like one of the biggest problems right now is, I don't know about you, but growing up, I had so many friends go from prescription pills to heroin, and a lot of them are did die way back in the day. And it's a huge problem.
What about psychedelic facilitation with kids?
I think, yeah, it makes it kind of not black and white. That could be a gray area where, for a lot of things, I know that microdosing shrooms can be good for anxiety. Ketamine therapy is great for PTSD. So it could be explored. And I guess without, doing it and then seeing in 10 years, 20 years, what it came out to be, we won't really know. Right.
See, and that's an interesting thing to dive into because it is something that a lot of our community equates to allowing kids to go to tandems, or for people that are not prepared to go base jumping, they equate it to basically like facilitating a drug experience for them. Would you be surprised to find out that facilitation of psychedelic experiences is something that parents can consent to their kids doing?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Well, along my path of like talking to all these different folks in different areas of expertise, I talked to a psychedelic psychotherapist and a former base jumper. She was both a former base jumper and also is a psychedelic psychotherapist. And I asked her the question about like, tandems, kids doing tandems and all of this. And her initial response was like, I don't have enough information to like really talk about this, but I can talk about other aspects. And I go, okay, cool. Let me frame it in your area of expertise. What do you think about serving up psychedelics to kids? And she goes, well, done it. And the circumstances were that these kids were having some serious issue, either with PTSD or depression or suicidal or homicidal ideation, serious anxiety, stuff like that. And she said that they facilitated everything from mushroom experiences to like full dose DMT trips. Now it's worth also mentioning that she said that there was a lot of experienced professionals around, right? Like they had doctors, they had the parents, they had the psychologists and the facilitators all working together to try and get this experience to be a positive effect on the person. But she also said that there was a certain amount of risk of seriously traumatizing somebody going through an experience like that. But that the purpose overall outweighed the risk.
Mm-hmm.
What's your thoughts on that? Like, would you put tandem base with kids in the same category or different?
100% different.
Okay.
But with that being said, I think there's a big difference between giving anyone like mushrooms compared to Xanax or DMT compared to heroin, right? Like it's two different drugs, but when it comes to giving people drugs, I would say it's different than tandem base. But I've also heard that this, like dopamine and things like that get released when you base jump, it's the same receptors as it is for drugs.
Right.
So in a sense, like when we base jump, we're getting ourselves naturally high to where it could become an addiction in its own.
And I think that's why people equate it to drug use.
Mm-hmm. I think that there's a gray area.
Okay.
It would be interesting to see what the outcome of that is long term.
So then in this case, we're drawing the line at basically dealing and not dealing. Like dealing drugs to kids is terrible.
Yes.
Dealing tandem base to kids is probably not an appropriate thing to do either. But on the other hand, you're saying that facilitating both of those experiences with the proper consent is socially acceptable.
I would say yes. I mean, personally, if I had kids every single day of the week, I would consent to them skydiving, base jumping, snowboarding, climbing before any of those other things you just brought up.
You got to actually do some of that too, right? Because your family was a skydiving family. As far as I'm aware, like your dad is a pretty expert skydiver and base jumper, and so is your sister.
Yeah. Me and Ashley grew up around skydiving. We were the drop zone kids, and back then there wasn't many drop zone kids. And so also I think, for me anyway, that kind of is where maybe I stand out, is because I grew up around skydiving, and the age to jump on your own was 16, and then as I got closer to 16, it changed to 18. So 100% 5-year-old me is like giving myself high fives, being like, yeah, you should take these kids base jumping and skydiving. This is badass, but within reason,
Within reason. And so I've talked to a couple of childhood skydivers from families that got them skydiving super early. One who was comfortable with me using their name on the show is Marty Jones. He was packing mains at age 8, reserves at age 9. He had his first cutaway at age 13.
I think that's kind of awesome, personally.
I mean, he did too. He thought it was awesome, right? He also caveated it with, though, that he got in a little steeper in the progression than he should have. He's like, it was amazing and I enjoyed the hell out of it. And I am a much more experienced skydiver because of it, because I got to start so early. But I also got lucky to be here.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, there are some things that I just could not process and react to as a kid that if I had done later, I would have nailed, but I had to luck out in order to survive.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, that's the thing, is it's not like I'm death camping these little kids, giving them their own little rig and PCAing them off a cliff. Cause that would be like a whole nother story where even I'd be like, yeah, we should not do that one. Yes.
Okay. So, last point on informed consent, and this one was brought up by Child Protective Services, which was in the thread of people throwing stones at you. Somebody was like, somebody should call Child Protective Services, And
yeah.
So I did. I called Child Protective Services. And their basic retort was, look, we have a process. And we can go through a process and we can evaluate a certain activity in a certain context and tell you if somebody has unnecessarily risked the health of a minor. But the bar is incredibly high and largely does not apply to anything that's recreational or anything that is commonplace, which tandems are starting to be.
Yep.
The thing that they did bring up, however, was the aspect of both parents providing informed consent in anything where their kid could be critically injured or die.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think about that? Has that ever been an issue? Do you think about that? Is that a thing that you require?
As far as both parents go, every time I've taken a kid, both parents were present and they thought it was the coolest thing. Like even if mom wasn't jumping, she was like, yeah, my kid just jumped off a cliff. That's badass. And personally, with the things brought up earlier, I think that there's worse things than putting your kid in extreme sports for kids to be faced with. So yeah, I would say that it depends on how you look at it, but both parents consenting to it, the kid's stoked, you're not forcing them off the cliff. I think that as far as you can say, like, yeah, there's informed consent. They know what they're doing. A kid's not going to grasp like, hey, we could hit the cliff. Like I said, critical failure, I think, is next to none. But never none, because,
Yeah.
But yeah, I would say that if you have both parents consent and the kids consent, the kid says yes multiple times, then I think, yeah, you're good to go.
Okay, so let's deal with that issue of the kid saying yes, because that, for me and for many other people, does differentiate between a lot of the other activities that are quote unquote harmful for kids and tandem base jumping and skydiving. For instance, you and I have brought up snowboarding, horseback riding, all these other activities that probabilistically speaking are much more likely to get a kid injured.
Absolutely.
Right. And do all the time. And society doesn't give a shit about it. Really, it would not be socially unacceptable to say, I just put my kid into Pop Warner football.
Yeah.
Even though it is like statistically speaking, very probable, if almost like not certain, that a kid is going to injure themselves playing football.
Well, and also you can get on Instagram and look up pages of like kids getting hurt, stuff like that, where parents are like posting this stuff.
Right.
So it's like, where did they draw the line with that?
Right. Yeah. The kid slams videos.
Yeah.
Yeah. Dude.
They're
wow.
hitting rails, boxes, hitting jumps on snowboards. I mean, dirt bikes, all of it. Everyone crashes, but yeah, it's like, is that more accepted than skydiving or base jumping? And if so, why?
It is. And I think, so the arguments that I got from a lot of parents who put their kids into stuff like that is that the kid is always giving positive reinforcement to the notion that they want to do it. Like they have to continually opt in order for the action to continue. Like they have to keep saying yes. If not, then the action stops. They don't drop in. They don't go on the field for the next play. They don't whatever else.
Mm-hmm.
How do you ensure that a child really wants to go tandem base jumping?
In the past, having them watch a parent go, older brother or sister, and then, this was really big in New Zealand because you get a lot of foreign families and they don't necessarily speak English, where the parents want their kids to jump, so they try and force them into jumping. You ask the kid multiple times as you're harnessing them up in the airplane before you go, like, are you sure you want to do this? And if at any point they say no, then you don't go. It's an immediate back off. We're not doing this.
How about at the very edge, the hardest place to do this, where you can't turn the kid around and look at their face. They're on your front and you are about to step off the edge.
Unless I was already stepping off to where it's like I can't reverse what I'm doing. I would easily just step backwards and cut the brake cord, completely disconnect from the system and not jump with them.
Okay.
But within reason, like if I'm 1 foot off stepping forward, like we're not.
Right. And they start going like, oh my God, oh my God,
yeah,
oh my God.
Then you're like, well, sorry, dude, it was a little too late.
Right. And so like that comes back to like the psychological risk of things. And I can give you one example at least because it was posted. There was a video posted by Dark Side of a tandem that he did with a kid. I can't remember how old, off of the bridge. And the kid looked pretty okay, pretty relaxed before they left. And then as they left, the kid was absolutely terrified, like catatonic terrified. And during the entire flight, just like scared out of their mind, like I've never seen that face ever.
Oh, damn. Yeah.
And so it was like this issue of like, okay, well, damn, like, how do you protect against that? I have seen him actually try and sell tandems to kids. So let's there is a different category here of somebody approaching you, like a kid approaching you, and you approaching a kid going, hey, do you want to go for a tandem? Which might very well have been the case here. And so the whole run of show might have led up to the point where this kid finally just like breaks down, having never really been given like a solid opportunity to tell what he wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
But I know that that's happened. And so it's relevant to bring up here and say like, well, how do you protect against that?
At least for me, all the kids I've taken, I flew with them and their family on the hot air balloon. So then we do a toast at the end of the flight, and I'll just show people videos because everyone wants to know what else you do. And it's also a great way to like inform people about tandem base jumping because it's pretty new in the grand scheme of things for the world. And usually there's little kids that'd be like, oh, that's awesome, I want to do it. And the parents are like, no way, you're not ever doing that. Or the whole family's like, yeah, that'd be sweet. So they already saw a video of it. They know that I'm the one they jump with. Personally, I haven't had a kid freak out like that. So I'd be interested to see that video because
Yeah. It got taken down.
it makes me feel bad, honestly. I'm like, oh man, that would.
Me too.
I feel terrible. I'd be like, oh my God, what? I'm sorry.
Right. Like that kid is traumatized, right? Yeah. And there was also, I was told a story about the first tandem skydive kid. Same kind of thing happened. Like it was a parent, it was a father and daughter, and the daughter really wanted to go. And so convinced the parent to like hook him up. They made a special harness for this kid to hook into the rig because tandem jumping wasn't even a thing at that point. One of their friends flew the plane, and like the child was stoked all the way up until the point where they were leaning out the door. And the pilot is looking back at the kid and notices that the face is just one of terror, but the parent can't see that at this point. And so like he goes, ready, set, go. They jump out of the plane. Everyone lands. The kid is like in tears, and everyone goes, okay, never again. Like,
oh man,
that was it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Personally, I haven't experienced that yet with anyone I've jumped with. I mean, I've had grown men like crying, and
I've had adults crying too. Yeah,
Yep.
absolutely.
It's a
risk.
It is. Yeah. I think everything is. But as long as you make sure that they're stoked on it and you're not forcing them off the cliff where they're crying and screaming. And, obviously if you step up to the cliff with someone and they start crying and whatnot, you're not going to like, we're going anyway.
Okay. So let's get into risk reward then. So we agree that there is a risk, both physically and mentally speaking.
Mm-hmm.
So let me just pose this one directly. What do you think kids get out of doing tandem base?
I would have to go back to when I was a little kid. And maybe this would be just because my dad did it. So it was something I wanted to do. Like, I'm sure you remember your first skydive or your first base jump. They might not have that same understanding of how cool it is, but it's still, you're jumping off of a cliff, like for me, I was jumping off cliffs into water, jumping off the house with a trash bag above my head, whatever I could to like get that thrill as a little kid. And with showing kids videos and stuff like that, I feel like most of them understand as best they can of what they're doing. I've had little kids be like, I can't wait to show my friends at school. There was one kid I took last year that was on the news for it in California.
Yeah.
He made like, I think it was a pretty big news channel. But yeah, so we were on the news for jumping off a cliff together, and he was all stoked in the interview, and I think he was 8. So risk to reward.
Yeah. What do they get out of it?
I think a thrill. Like, it's the same thrill that kids get rock climbing. Like, my dad had me climbing as a little kid, had me skiing at 3. Like, you don't fully understand it, but it's still fun.
Okay. So let me introduce one piece of information, and then I will give you a question on that. So talking to a child developmental psychologist, they kind of agreed with that statement of thrill, saying that there are a lot of kids that suffer from ADD, ADHD, and issues like that, and said that extreme environments and extreme experiences are somewhat calming to them because their mental and physical state start going kind of the same speed. Like they are in now harmony with their environment. Whereas before, like their mind's going mile a minute in a very heightened state, but they're not doing anything exciting. And so it just doesn't match. And so there's a constant battle between mind and body, causing like constant cognitive dissonance, which is uncomfortable and causes kids to act out. So like the child developmental psychologist, and I'll say a little bit more about what they said, but for now, the one aspect that I have to introduce is that, like, yes, that can be calming or somewhat harmonizing to a child to give them that extreme experience. The question to you is, if it's the same as rock climbing, then why assume a greater level of danger?
Well, that's an excellent question. I would say that depending on age and whatnot, like little kids, all the way up to young adults are doing extreme stuff rock climbing. I mean, I have friends that were free soloing before they were 18, like Aaron and Nolan. Those guys were climbing forever and always messing around. Ultimately, climbing both got them in the long run. But it's, I would say it goes back to watching kids hit boxes and rails in the terrain park and stuff like that. Like, is that equally dangerous? I would say in a lot of ways it's probably more dangerous than jumping with a professional. But that's if everything goes right. Where we get into the theoretical side of it, if things go wrong, then how wrong do they go?
Right.
So,
I mean, I guess I'm looking at the purpose of, jumping with a kid as young as 5 and asking like, all right, well, what is the possible reward here? And why does it need to happen in this extreme environment? Why not a less extreme environment? Basically, again, asking you like, where's the line? Which like, I think was posed to you in another comment when somebody said, okay, Jimmy, why not a 2-year-old?
well, that's easy because their necks don't support it and they can't hold the GoPro to get the shot. And so,
Okay.
like to a certain, I was kidding about the GoPro, but like physically, like up until a certain age, kids are pretty, like, you got to protect their neck and stuff like that.
Right. So you agree that there is a physicality aspect to kids that are too young. I'll add in another component that the developmental psychologist said, and he's like, well, when I'm looking at reward, I'm looking at long-term reward. Somebody that's 5 is unlikely to remember the majority of what happened. And so, like, did they build a skill set doing that? No, they're going with an experienced person. Are they going to remember it? Science would say probably not.
Mm-hmm.
And so it is really an isolated incident. Like it's that one moment that they get to experience that one thing and then boom, gone.
Yep.
So again, I'm posing the question of like where you're drawing the line and why. What's the purpose of jumping somebody as young as 5 as far as like the experience goes?
If they want to do it, and they verbalize that and actually like seem excited about it, then that's kind of where I'm like, okay, then we can do this. Fortunately, you are talking to someone, a very few people in the world that can take you to do this.
Right.
And also like just from talking to even adults about skydives, some people you meet are like, yeah, I did it. And they don't really have much to say about it. Like, it was all right. It was cool. They didn't have the same reaction that like you and I did, where we're like, we need to do this
Right.
as many times as we can. So, so I think that, what do little kids remember everything forever? Well, I definitely remember certain things from my childhood, good or bad. And so I would like to say that that little kid is going to remember till he's older that, yeah, he jumped off a cliff. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Last part on the child developmental psychologist point of view, their opinion was that a child that young is highly impressionable. How do you differentiate between a child as young as 5 wanting to do something and them just wanting to impress their parents or go along with what their parents think is a valuable experience for them? Like basically, how do you know that they want to do it versus want the attention for doing it?
Body language, how they're reacting to the whole scenario. For instance, the 5-year-old, when I was holding his hand to help him jump across the cracks to Mary's, wasn't ever scared, wasn't asking his mom what she thought. He was present with me the whole time about it. So I would say, and actually just through other little kids watching their siblings jump, and they say no. They're like, no, I don't want to do it. I think that we give kids less credit than they deserve for things like that. Like even in teaching snowboarding, I taught the 4, 5, and 6-year-olds for one of my classes, and there was times when they'd be stoked on stuff, and then there's other times where they were like, no, we want to go for hot chocolate, or they're like, yeah, let's go shred the powder, even as good as they could. But some days they were feeling it, other days they were like, no, we're good. Interesting enough, they were less stoked to go out and shred in front of their parents, snowboarding anyway.
Yeah.
They always got nervous around their parents. So the kids I've taken tandem base jumping didn't have that same reaction as I've seen with kids in other sports.
I mean, I've seen it both ways. I think I told you earlier about my run-ins with the Boy Scouts of America and teaching kids how to climb in front of them. And eventually our gym had to kick out every parent except for the one that was, approving the merit badges. They were so hostile and so demanding of their kids that like a large percentage of them, like over half of them, ended up crying. And we're like, what is happening here?
Yeah. See, and if I was having that reaction with skydiving or base jumping, I would have a whole different view on it. I'd be like, same thing, like, oh, well, maybe this isn't cool to do. But when you're seeing positive feedback and people are happy, people are stoked, especially little kids, then it's kind of like, yeah, why not? I mean, I think, at least with myself, I know Andy's highly experienced. We're definitely going to give anyone the safest possible outcome. And if there's any two people better in the world to be dealing with Moab jumping, Andy and I would say some of the top. Obviously, Gravy and Lodge, very, very experienced as well. There's other people in tandem base that I'm not going to name names, but I would be like, no one should jump with them.
And yet, like the area is still unregulated, and so they can.
Yeah, exactly. But that's where I would start to draw the line in tandem base. There's certain people I'd say no one should jump with, adult, old, young, but for other people, I'm like, okay, yeah, these guys know what they're doing. And so I think can be safely done.
Okay. So, you brought up a couple of things that I want to pick at, in the context of what the sports psychologist that I talked to, had offered. One of the things you said was, we don't give kids enough credit.
Mm-hmm.
And the sports psychologist definitely agreed with that. He's like, we do not give kids enough credit. They are more resilient than we think. They are more capable than we think. Largely, we, overprotect them, and sometimes to our detriment, because they grow up and they just don't have any skills to deal with extreme things, and like extreme things will eventually befall them. He added in, though, why not wait later? I explained to him the situation. He's like, okay, I get it. Honestly, he said that football was a greater concern to him than what I was describing. He's like, kids in football are guaranteed to get messed up. And so I would rather spend my energy trying to convince parents that that is a bad thing to do. But he added in, why not wait for, a kid to be a little older and thus have more ability to enjoy the experience that they're going through because they understand more of it, right? Like he's like, at 5, they're not really going to understand the risk of it and such. They're not going to get as much reward out of it. If they put in more work to understand what's happening and then get to go through it, it's probably a more rewarding experience. So what is the answer to that question? Why not older?
Well, that's a good question that I don't have a huge answer for, because if I were to compare myself to that kid at that age, I was around the sport. So that's a big difference between me and some of these kids. I think that maybe some of them will get the reward afterwards because their parents are probably going to show them, well, what we all see, most people see as base jumping as wingsuiting, even though it's totally different. But the little kids are going to start to like see videos and stuff like that. So I think that at first they might not grasp it fully. Like they'll be like, oh, I jumped off a cliff, which I think anyone could like look at Mary's Gash and be like, wow, I just jumped off that, Will they grasp it fully? Maybe not, but maybe over time they'll start to pick up on it more. And maybe, I mean, we'd have to like talk to these kids later in life, but maybe it'll inspire them to go do great things or to send it snowboarding or climbing, which can be subjective because maybe they shouldn't be hucking backflips at, age 7, but it could inspire them to be the next Olympic athlete.
Now we've gotten into the realm of not only the sports psychologist, but also the neuropsychologist that I talked to. And both of them agreed with what you are projecting, that if you expose people to extreme environments early on, that they will develop an emotional reaction to extreme environments that will allow them to perform better than their counterparts that don't. They also projected somewhat of a risk here, wherein which a child will get an inappropriate emotional reaction to something that they should be afraid of. and thus put them in a category that is more likely to get injured early on. And we can kind of see that in base jumping too, where like somebody facilitates a jumper through the entire experience, basically like almost guaranteeing success because they're making all of the decisions. And the person comes away with that going like, oh, this is no problem. Like no big deal. Like every time that I've been scared, this has worked out. And then they end up on their own. And it's like, okay, well, I'm terrified of what I'm about to do. But my logical side at this point says that's no problem. Keep going. Because every time that I've like heard that, it's been bullshit and it's been fine.
Yep.
And bam, that's when they go in.
Yep.
So can you speak to that eventuality?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it could go both ways, right? Like it could inspire them to do great things, or it could inspire them to go get hurt and do stupid shit. Like there's certainly things in life that I'm like, I wouldn't do that. Like parkour and stuff like that. Like I'm not going to go jump off a house and try and like roll out of it, or backflip from the top of a house and land on a rail. And so to an extent, like, yeah, hopefully the kid's not jumping off 3-story buildings with a trash bag because he went base jumping, He's like, it worked this way, so why not? But then again, like, well, I can't even say that because the kid got the base rig and jumped off El Cap last year.
He did. Remember that, dude? Yeah,
so I was like, well, actually, anything's possible.
Anything's possible. Okay, so this will get into a little bit more about what I was discussing with neuropsychologist. Your statement that it could go either way basically puts this type of behavior into an experimental realm, right? And when I asked him flat out, like, what do you think about this? His initial response was like, I don't know. He goes, look, there's no experimentation that covers this kind of realm. Because first of all, when we were experimenting on kids like this, the activity that you're describing didn't exist. And once that activity did exist in the 1980s and 90s, there were wide sweeping changes in the field of psychology that would make this type of experiment impossible. It would never pass the medical board because they would look at it and go, all right, the risk of this does not meet the standard, like what the psychological community and society is going to get out of experimenting with kids is not worth the risk that we're going to potentially psychologically damage them or physically damage them.
So I just had an interesting thought because on the movie Free Solo, they do an MRI or CAT scan on
Alex Honnold.
Yeah. And they found that certain images didn't cause his brain to react the same as like, well, quote unquote, normal people's brains. Like, and I almost wonder if like you and I would have the same, like maybe our brain wouldn't react the same. So in a sense, like, yeah, maybe it is overstimulating them to a point where, but then I would also argue that like snowboarding or racing dirt bikes or a lot of other things that kids could do repeatedly that, the world accepts, could also be changing their brain chemistry in that way.
Right.
So in that way, then, I mean, yeah, maybe me taking them on a base jump does forever alter their life. And if it does, then I would pray and hope that it's for the best.
Yeah. Well, man, we have talked this one out. We've got a lot on the table here. And largely I've been like throwing things your way. Why don't I give you the opportunity? What's on your mind in this debate? Is there anything that we've left on the table here?
I think we've gone over a lot of it. Personally, with all the heated comments on Facebook and stuff, like I haven't really personally taken offense to anything that's been said. Maybe if I was less experienced in this realm, I would be a little more offended by what people are saying. But I think if tandem base is to continue, then there should be maybe not a standardized thing, but like what Andy and I had to go through with tandem skydiving and getting enough base jumps. I know Sean Chuma kind of pioneered it, but that was kind of, everyone went off his recommendations. Matt Lodge, Gravy, Nick Reyes, we've all kind of done the same thing. Sam and Dukes, I know, have a lot of tandems, but I think tandem base will become more accepted as long as the people doing it are responsible, have the experience, and take it seriously. There's definitely people that have done tandem base jumps that, in my opinion, shouldn't be and aren't really taking it serious.
There are a
Yeah,
couple
it's-
of old timers that I talked to. One of them was Martin Tilley, who I talked to at length, who was like, we're a self-regulating community only insofar as we shun people.
Yep.
That's about it. You know, like nobody's coming to somebody's door and taking their equipment. Like if they did, it would be illegal and they would get sued and the equipment would come back.
Exactly.
You know? And so it's like, you know, what recourse is there really? Next to none.
Yeah, and well, I've said this from the beginning. You know, I pray that there's not a fatality or a serious injury, but like in the United States, when people get injured, that's when rules usually are made. So if there is a fatality, guaranteed that's going to change overnight, and it probably will have to be standardized.
Yeah. So
Or it'll be made illegal completely.
that's also what Martin ended our conversation with. He goes, it comes down to hope here. Like, I hope that nobody dies doing this because it will have wide sweeping effects on the community.
Mhm.
So I talked to the BLM, and before I tell you about the BLM conversation, I talked to them in generalities about their policy.
Mhm.
I did not talk to them specifically about base jumping or kids.
Yeah.
Okay. And I also talked to a couple of attorneys who specialize in wrongful death as well as insurance claims.
Mhm.
And the BLM's response to policy was essentially like, something does have to go wrong. And then we look at the specifics of it. And then we try and come up with a policy that will indemnify us against future problems. The example that she brought up was that rope jump incident at Corona Arch.
Yep.
Yeah. She's like, somebody gets injured. Then somebody has to pay for it, right? If there's an operator, the operator gets sued. If the operator doesn't have enough money or insurance, then the BLM will get sued. And their response is going to be to then pretty much just try and not have that liability in the future. In the case of Corona Arch, they said no more roped activity on Corona Arch. Cut and dry. That's it. Gone.
So as a special recreation permit holder, I have to carry millions of dollars in insurance already. And I know that's across the board. Some activity, well, I think ballooning and base jumping are probably similar. You have to have at least $1 million. I have to have 3 million because they're deemed high risk.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, in that aspect, like we do have to cover ourselves right off the get-go. Will the insurance cover us? I would say yes. The insurance company doesn't have a rule about covering kids or not.
Interesting.
It's just like rafting, hot air ballooning, kids are covered. Climbing, kids can go. They're covered.
What the BLM officer said in conclusion, their policy would first look at if there are standards and practices that were being violated. And if so, then the punishment, I guess, would mostly fall on the person that violated those standards.
Mhm.
If there were no standards, which currently that's the case for base jumping, then they have to make a blanket policy that covers everything. Right. And so like they get stuck in this rock and a hard place of like, okay, guys, so what's the difference between somebody base jumping a tandem kid and somebody base jumping? And like, if we've got our hands in the air on that, they go, yikes. Now we're going to have to make a policy that covers base jumping in general and not this specific area, which has no standards to begin with.
Right. Yeah. And I think, well, I mean, at least with what I've seen here in Moab, I work with the BLM a lot, but the more that things have gotten more cozy with them, the more they've shut down areas or they're looking to shut down areas. For instance, like all of Hellroaring Canyon, most of Mineral Bottom is now closed to base jumping.
Right.
They're talking about the Fisher Towers closing that.
Yeah.
So the more information we give them, the more they can kind of take that away, you know?
Right.
So if, you know, and this is theoretical, but if something does happen in tandem base, let's pray it's not a fatality, because that could be like the nail in the coffin of them just shutting it down. Maybe just tandem base, because we have had like, I think 7 fatalities here of solo jumpers. Overall.
Yeah.
And obviously way more injuries, but that hasn't closed it down yet.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it really has to be something that the public cares about immensely.
Yep.
I can say that it's not theoretical how we lost Yosemite. That one was largely due to several jumpers on the top of El Cap throwing champagne bottles off of the top.
Really?
Yeah. And
Okay.
they were whizzing by climbers, and one of the climbers happened to be a person of authority in the park who like instantaneously, like within the hour, shut down the entire face and arrested those folks. And the result was that Yosemite started to close to all base jumping activity. Prior to that, it was completely open. You barely needed to do a permit.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting. Huh.
And after that, and because it was a matter of public danger, right? Like it wasn't an individual going in. It was like these people are endangering the public by throwing things off the top.
Understandable,
Understandable.
Like, if we throw a rock off for a rock drop and hit someone and kill them, then then they're going to be like, it's endangering the public. So
right. Though illogically enough, like the thing that they were doing had nothing to do with base jumping.
How did it get tied together? They had rigs up top, or
they had rigs, yeah. And so like the community of base jumpers took that hit just based on like a few kind of bad apples doing nonsense.
right.
And like now, what is this? This is like 30 years later. Yeah. 30 years, maybe even 40 years later now,
Right.
because this was mid 80s, early 90s. It's still that, like, we're still fighting that fight.
Well, I mean, France, same thing at Brabant.
Yeah.
Obviously to a more extreme level.
More
but-
extreme level. Yeah. Dude goes through a transfer house.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
So, but yeah, it would be interesting. So, the four of us doing tandems here, I think that all of us have the skills and capabilities to minimize the risk or, outcomes of worst case scenario. And worst case scenario is a 180 is what I'm referring to. It's not going in.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess we'll have to see what the future holds.
Well, I'm going to end my statements with the thing that I wrote to you online, which is, man, I hope nothing goes wrong. I truly am wishing perfection on every tandem jump that's executed, because I truly do hope that nothing happens.
Yeah, so do I. I wish everyone doing it the best. And yeah, hopefully we can all keep the safety record going. And yeah, we'll see where it goes.
Well, thanks very much for joining me on this show, and let's see you out there.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
If you made it to the end of this interview, I applaud your fortitude, and if you're feeling a little upset or incensed, please go to our Instagram page, exitpoint.podcast, and drop us a line, because we've got stickers that we're happy to send anyone who wants to express their outrage in a comical fashion. Until next time, see you on the exit point. We hope you enjoyed this episode. If you have any thoughts you'd like to share with us about what you've just heard, please don't hesitate to reach out. And if you'd like to support this independent production, please leave us a review wherever you listen to podcasts, and follow us on Instagram at exitpoint.podcast, where we'll update our followers with Exit Point merchandise available for purchase and ways to donate. Until next time, see you on the exit point.